Do you feel tired even after a light walk? Think it's just getting older? But what if it's not just age? What if it's your heart asking for help? Today we're going to talk about 5 warning signs where fatigue isn't just aging, but possibly the early stages of heart failure. Most importantly, you'll learn what you can do to catch it early and take care of yourself in time. No fear tactics, just clear, helpful guidance, because you deserve clarity, support, and a long life without fear. Let's start with a surprising one: waking up tired, even after a full night's sleep. Now, I know it's easy to chalk that up to aging. Maybe you think, well, that's just what being in your 70s feels like, but I want to gently push back on that. Waking up exhausted, like you've been running all night instead of resting, can actually be your body's quiet way of asking for help. When your heart isn't pumping blood as effectively as it should during sleep, your muscles and brain aren't getting the oxygen they need. So instead of restoring energy overnight, your body is working overtime to compensate, and you wake up feeling just as drained, if not more. This isn't something to ignore. Your body is talking to you, and it's not just about aging, it's about circulation, oxygen, and how your heart is managing the load, especially while you sleep. I've seen this firsthand many times over the years, but one story in particular stays with me. A few years ago, I was working with a patient named Helen, 72, retired librarian, lives in a quiet suburb in Ohio. She came in for a routine checkup, but ended up mentioning, almost like an afterthought, that she felt like she woke up already, sat tired most mornings. Her words were, "Doctor, I don't know what's wrong. I go to bed at 10, I sleep all night, but I get up and feel like I haven't rested at all." At first, she thought maybe it was just the winter blues. Her daughter even suggested she needed more vitamins, but one morning while making tea in her kitchen, Helen fainted. Luckily, her neighbor was visiting and called 911. After a hospital evaluation and a few tests, we discovered early-stage heart failure. It was subtle, no dramatic chest pain, just this constant, unexplained fatigue. Once we knew what we were dealing with, we made some adjustments in her treatment and lifestyle. The change didn't happen overnight, but over time, Helen's mornings started feeling different. She told me later, "I didn't realize how bad I felt until I started feeling better." Her story is not unusual. I've had similar conversations with folks like Charles, 69, in Arizona, or Dorothy, 75, from Kansas City. These aren't rare cases. They're just often overlooked because the symptom feels so normal. So what can you actually do starting today? One of the simplest things I recommend is keeping a short morning fatigue log for just 5 days. Each morning, write down how you feel when you first wake up. Even just a number from 1 to 10 can help. If you notice that 3 or more mornings out of 5 you're waking up feeling drained, that's a pattern worth discussing with your doctor, especially if it's combined with things like swelling in your legs, shortness of breath during the day, or needing naps to get through the afternoon. You don't need fancy equipment, just a pen, paper, and a few honest minutes in the morning. This kind of record gives your doctor something real to work with, and it can help catch things early. Here's what I want you to remember, more than anything else. You are not just tired. You are not being dramatic. You are not imagining it. And you don't have to just accept that this is how life feels now. Sometimes, the biggest clue that something is off comes in the quietest way, like how you feel when you first open your eyes. So don't ignore that signal. Pay attention to it, ask questions, and believe that change is still possible. Even small steps like writing things down can open the door to better mornings and better days. You're not your symptoms. You're someone who deserves to feel strong again. Here's another one that often gets brushed off: getting winded from simple everyday things. If walking up a flight of stairs or carrying groceries leaves you gasping for air, even when you're taking it slow, it might not just be getting older. What I've seen again and again in my work is that this kind of breathlessness, especially if it's new or getting worse, can be an early warning sign that your heart is struggling to keep up. As we age, it's normal to slow down a bit, but your heart should still be able to support your body through gentle activity. If it feels like you're running a marathon just walking around the block, that's not normal aging. That's your body telling you that the oxygen your muscles need isn't getting there fast enough, and the heart is often the reason why. Remember one patient in particular, Robert, 68 years old, retired high school coach living outside San Antonio, Texas. He used to walk his 2 grandsons to the local park every Saturday morning, something he looked forward to all week. Then one day, about halfway through the walk, he had to stop. He said it felt like something was pressing down on his chest, even though he wasn't in pain exactly. He caught his breath, brushed it off, and tried again the next weekend. Same thing. Within a month, he stopped going altogether. At first he blamed it on the heat or allergies, but when his wife noticed he was also winded going up their single staircase at home, she insisted on a checkup. We ran a few tests, including a resting ECG and a stress test, and found early signs of cardiomyopathy. Basically, his heart muscle wasn't pumping as efficiently as it used to. He told me later, "I thought I was just getting lazy." But it wasn't laziness, it was a medical issue that needed attention, and once we caught it, we were able to manage it. Now he's back to walking, not quite as far, but with confidence and better energy. Another patient, Dorothy, 73, from Georgia, had a similar story. Her breathlessness while vacuuming turned out to be early heart failure, and now with the right meds and a bit of support, she's back to gardening again. What I often recommend, and what's easy to do at home, is a simple walking test. Set a timer for 6 minutes and walk at your normal pace, either around the house or outside in a flat area. Don't rush, just move naturally. If you find yourself needing to stop and catch your breath before the 6 minutes are up, or if it feels significantly harder than it used to, that's a sign worth paying attention to. Write it down, then repeat the test again in a few days. Patterns are powerful, and bringing a record like that to your doctor helps them help you much faster. It's not about pushing yourself, it's about observing what your body is already telling you. I like to say your breath is your body's voice, and when that voice gets tight, shallow, or strained during light movement, it's not complaining, it's warning. You deserve to move through your day without fear or struggle. And it's not about pushing harder, it's about listening sooner. One small step, like a 6-minute test, might just be the first step to feeling like yourself again. You've still got strength in you. Sometimes it just needs a little help to come back. Here's one that often sneaks up quietly. Noticing swelling in your feet, ankles, or even your belly, especially by the end of the day. Now I understand it's easy to think, well, I was on my feet all afternoon, or it must be the salt in that soup. And sure, some swelling now and then can be normal, but if your shoes feel tight most evenings, or you have to loosen your waistband regularly, and nothing else in your routine has changed, that could be your heart talking. As we age, the heart's ability to pump blood effectively can start to slow down. When it does, fluid begins to back up in the body instead of being circulated and filtered the way it should. That backup often shows up in the lowest points first, your legs, your ankles, and sometimes your abdomen. It's called fluid retention, and it's one of the most overlooked early signs of heart failure. Your body isn't just swelling, it's trying to tell you something. I remember a patient of mine, Marjorie, who was 75 and living in Sarasota, Florida. She came to me for a checkup and mentioned, almost jokingly, that she must be retaining the whole ocean in her legs. She thought the swelling was just from sitting too long or the humid weather. She also told me that her belt suddenly stopped fitting right, not because she had gained weight, but because her stomach felt bloated most evenings, even when she hadn't eaten much. We ran a few basic tests, and what we found was early-stage heart failure. Her heart was having a hard time keeping up with the demands of her body, and the fluid had started to build up gradually. Another patient, James, 70, from North Carolina, noticed something similar. His socks were leaving deep marks in his ankles every night, which had never happened before. At first, he blamed the socks, but when he started to feel tired climbing stairs and noticed shortness of breath, he came in for a checkup. Like Marjorie, his heart was working harder than it should. In both cases, early detection helped us start treatment before things got worse, and that's really the key. What often helps in situations like this is using simple visual cues that don't require medical equipment. One of the easiest methods I recommend is the belt or waistband check. Pick a belt you wear regularly or mark a spot on your waistband. If you notice that same spot feels tighter than usual more than 2 or 3 times a week, and especially if that change is happening, in the evening it's worth paying attention to. You can also watch your shoes. If they feel snug at the end of the day when they didn't in the morning, or if your feet feel heavy or stiff, that's another sign. Write these things down for a few days and bring those notes with you to your next doctor's appointment. Small changes like these, when tracked over time, can make a big difference in catching something serious early. Here's something I always tell my patients. Your body never lies, but it often whispers first. Swelling isn't just cosmetic, and it's not just about salt or sitting too long. If something feels different in your body, even if it seems small or gradual, trust that feeling. You're not overreacting, you're paying attention, and that awareness is a form of strength. Even tiny shifts, like noticing your shoes or your waistband, can be the first step toward protecting your heart. You deserve to feel light in your steps, confident in your body, and fully present in your life. Let's talk about something that many folks chalk up to age, getting up multiple times a night to use the bathroom. If you're waking up 2, 3, or even 4 times a night and your water intake hasn't increased, it might be more than just a normal part of getting older. What many people don't realize is that this can be a sign that your heart is struggling to handle fluid during the day. When the heart doesn't pump effectively, fluid tends to collect in your legs and lower body while you're upright. But when you lie down at night, gravity shifts and the body starts to catch up, trying to process and eliminate all that built-up fluid, which sends you to the bathroom again and again. This cycle isn't just annoying, it's exhausting, and it might be your heart quietly asking for help. You deserve restful sleep, and if your nights are being broken by repeated trips to the bathroom, we shouldn't ignore it. I've seen this exact pattern with one of my longtime patients, George, a 70-year-old retired mail carrier from Arizona. George came in originally for a checkup and joked that he was getting too friendly with his bathroom. At first, he and his wife thought it was his prostate, which is a common assumption at his age, but something didn't quite add up. George wasn't drinking more than usual, and his daytime urination was normal. It was just at night that things changed. We ran a few simple tests, including an echocardiogram, and the results pointed to a different culprit, his heart. George had mild heart failure that wasn't causing chest pain or shortness of breath yet, but it was clearly putting extra strain on his body. Another patient, Linda, 73, from Oregon, had almost the same issue. She woke up 3 times a night every night and blamed menopause and aging, but her swelling ankles and nighttime urination turned out to be related to fluid buildup. In both cases, once we adjusted their medication and reduced their sodium intake, their symptoms improved dramatically. George told me later, "I didn't even realize how much sleep I was losing until I finally slept through the night again." One of the simplest things I recommend is a basic bathroom log. For 1 week, keep a small notebook next to your bed. Write down the number of times you wake up to urinate, along with what and how much you drink in the evening. If you notice you're going 2 or more times a night, especially without drinking much after dinner, bring that log to your doctor. It's not a diagnosis, but it's a helpful tool that shows patterns your body is following. And if your doctor sees signs that your heart might be working overtime, they can run further tests early, before symptoms become harder to manage. I want you to know that broken sleep is not something you have to simply live with. Your body is doing what it can to manage stress behind the scenes, and nighttime urination might just be one of the few visible signs. It's not about being alarmed, it's about being aware. Your rest matters, your heart matters, and you're allowed to ask questions, track patterns, and take steps to feel better. Even something as small as noticing how often you get up at night can be the first clue toward restoring the deep, healing sleep you deserve. Here's something that often gets overlooked: your heart racing even when you're resting. You might be sitting on the couch reading a book or watching the news and suddenly become aware that your heart feels like it's racing. No stress, no activity, no coffee, just this fluttering or pounding out of nowhere. A lot of people assume it's anxiety or maybe dehydration, and sometimes that's true. But if it keeps happening, especially more than once a day or over a few days in a row, it could be a sign that your heart is trying to compensate for something, like not pumping blood efficiently. In older adults, especially over 60, a resting heart rate consistently above 90 or 100 beats per minute can point to something deeper. The heart is a muscle, and when it's overworked, it sometimes speeds up just to keep up. If you feel that flutter more often lately, your heart may be asking for a closer look. I had a patient recently, Linda, 66, a retired school secretary from San Diego. She came to see me about what she called evening jitters. She said she would be lying in bed and suddenly feel a flutter in her chest, like her heart was doing a dance. It wasn't painful, but it was unsettling. She didn't have any shortness of breath, no dizziness, just that racing heart, usually when she was still. At first, she figured it was nerves or maybe a side effect of her thyroid medication, but the episodes became more frequent. We did a basic exam, and I had her check her pulse each morning and evening for 3 days. Each time, her heart rate was over 95 beats per minute, and that's in bed doing nothing. We ran an ECG and eventually found that she had atrial fibrillation, a type of irregular heartbeat that can quietly increase the risk of heart failure and stroke. The good news is, because she caught it early, we were able to manage it with medication and a few lifestyle adjustments. Now she says she sleeps better and feels less on edge, even during the day. I've seen similar cases in men too, like Harold, 72, from Michigan, who had frequent palpitations after lunch but thought it was indigestion. It turned out to be his heart's rhythm misfiring, and again we caught it just in time. What often helps in situations like this is taking 3 quiet moments each day, morning, afternoon and evening, to check your pulse for 30 seconds while you're sitting or lying still. If you count more than 45 beats in those 30 seconds, that means your resting heart rate is over 90. Do this for 3 days in a row. If the number stays high, especially without any obvious cause, it's worth bringing up to your doctor. Write it down, the time, the number, and how you were feeling. This simple check-in can be the difference between catching something early and missing it entirely. Here's something I often say to my patients. Your heart is like the engine of your body. You may not hear it all the time, but when it starts, revving without reason, it's time to lift the hood. Feeling your heartbeat faster at rest isn't something to brush off. It doesn't mean something is wrong with you. It means your body is working hard to keep you going, and it deserves a little help. Even the quietest signals matter, especially when they come from the thing that keeps you alive. You're not being alarmist, you're being wise. And wisdom like that keeps you in control, one heartbeat at a time. If even one of these signs feels familiar, don't stay silent. Leave a comment and tell us which tip helped you or what you've experienced personally. We read every message. If this video helped, please give it a like and subscribe so you won't miss the next Heart Smart tips made just for you. And remember, you're not alone. You're stronger than you think. Life goes on when you hold it gently in your hands.